Think about it for a second. You spend $13 billion on an AI partnership, you force it into every single piece of software your company makes, and then you tell your own engineers to use your biggest competitor's tool instead. Does that sound like a winning strategy to you? Why is the world's biggest software company secretly abandoning their own flagship AI in the hallways of Redmond? Are we watching the most expensive product failure in the history of tech, or something much more calculated happening behind the scenes? Today, we're looking at the internal memos that prove that Microsoft's own developers are jumping ship to Claude Code just because Copilot isn't cutting it. Let's dive into it today. Welcome to Startup Pack. I'm Spencer, and here at Startup Pack, we love to build custom software solutions for companies. With a decade of executive leadership as a fractional CTO and 25 years in software development, I've mastered transforming tech teams and products. All right, look, I've seen a lot of hype cycles in my time in the industry. I've seen technologies come and go, but the situation with Microsoft Copilot is special. It's one thing to have a product that needs polish. It's another thing entirely when your own engineers, the people building the Windows and teams you use every single day, are being strongly encouraged to install Anthropic's Claude Code because it actually gets the job done. Before we dive into the details, do me a huge favor, leave a comment down below, because it's genuinely my favorite thing about making these videos. And hearing your perspective is the best compliment you can give me. Now, I want to go into where we see a report from this, because this is kind of interesting. And so let's pull up this Reddit thread here that we've got. Let me get my camera switched over here. So Microsoft told employees across Windows teams, M365, and other divisions to install Claude Code for internal testing alongside Copilot. Not as a curiosity, it's approved to use on all Microsoft repositories. The company, with $13 billion in OpenAI spending, $500 million per year with Anthropic, their Azure sales teams now get quoted credit for Anthropic sales. So this is funny here, but put down the pitchforks. The consensus of the thread is that the original proposal gotcha is a massive nothing burger. So this guy's coming back with a contradictory, but he's in the main takeaway is that Microsoft's strategy isn't about pushing one model. It's about making Azure the go-to cloud platform for all models. Now, that's kind of interesting, but he says, what this next poster says he finds absolutely wild is that Claude doesn't actually score better or even win across 95% of benchmarks. Yet, universally, developers find its problem solves better than every other solution. I think this just goes to show how unreliable the benchmark tools are and how you really can't believe anything in the marketing. And that's just like true. He says, I think it also shows that there's still a ton of work that needs to be done outside the model to build out a proper harness. And that's actually where I think Claude Code wins here, right? And I think that's one of the big things here, right? In order for it to be effective. So the model Copilot's using might actually be fine, but the tools around it are terrible. So if you look at the Claude Code tool calls, it can run hundreds of calls outside of the LLMs that are deterministic and provide critical data for the model to consume. He says, yeah, there's a lot running besides the raw API, and a custom cursor makes Claude Code the best coding agent. And I agree with that. And that's what we're seeing down here, right? Is we're seeing a lot of niche down and a lot of different things. But Microsoft recently instructed thousands of engineers across Windows and M365 divisions to install Claude Code for internal use. This isn't just some casual experiment. It's a massive pilot program running right alongside the tools they're supposed to be selling you. So in my years of doing development, I've never seen a company this big admit their own dog food tastes bad. So internal reports suggest that Experiences and Devices org is leading the charge because Copilot simply wasn't solving complex architectural problems. So it's a massive signal when a company with $13 billion stake in OpenAI starts spending $500 million a year with Anthropic instead. Now, let's put this into perspective here. They're not spending on OpenAI. They're not spending on Copilot. Instead, they're going to Anthropic, right? They're effectively doing their own competitive analysis and finding out that they're losing the race on their own home turf. Now, the biggest problem is that GitHub Copilot is largely stuck as a glorified autocomplete, while Claude Code acts like a full-blown agent. Claude Code can actually help with a lot of different things. And here at Startup Pack, we're actually switching to our developers to also use Claude Code. Now, Copilot often just sits where waiting for a prompt, while the newer tools actually does help with a lot of your development tasks. So we've noticed that the most developers want a teammate, not just a smarter version of Clippy, which is what Copilot is. So we're dealing with a lot of legacy code bases. You need a tool that can actually help. Now, again, it's not going to do all the work for you. It's not replacing developers, but it is a very powerful tool that developers should be using. Microsoft is realizing that their Copilot brand is starting to feel like a step backwards compared to the autonomous agents coming from Anthropic. Now, one of the most frustrating limitations of the current Copilot is its tiny 64K context window. Compare that with Claude's massive 200K plus window, and it's like trying to read a book through a keyhole versus opening the whole door. If the AI can't see your entire project at once, which is what the context window is, it's going to make mistakes and miss subtle connections in your logic. Developers at Microsoft are likely hitting this wall every single day when they try to work on massive enterprise systems. So, in my experience, having a large context window is the difference between a tool that is useful and one that is just plain annoying. You can't build world-class software when your AI assistant has the short-term memory of a goldfish. There's been viral reports of Copilot in Excel failing at basic math, which is honestly embarrassing for a flagship product. When the cost of a hallucination can reach millions of dollars in enterprise environment, mostly correct isn't good enough. Users are reporting that the lobotomized version of GPT-4o inside of Copilot is significantly less capable than the raw models. So I've sat in CTO meetings where we had to roll back AI features because they were making up fictitious data for legal documents, and that's when they'd call in Startup Hack to come and help them. So if creators of the software don't trust it to write their own internal code, why on earth would a bank or a hospital trust it? Reliability is the only metric that matters in the long run. So the benchmarks and everything else can go right out the window. And right now the needle is pointing in the wrong direction for Microsoft and Copilot. The community have actually coined the term microslop, coming from Microsoft, to describe the aggressive, forced integration of AI into every corner of Windows. Microsoft is shoving Copilot into Notepad, Paint, and the taskbar, even when users explicitly try to disable it or remove it. This AI everywhere play is creating a massive rift between the company and its most loyal power users. I've been a Windows user for like almost 30 years, and even now I'm starting to look at shifting into Linux. We use Linux for all of our servers, but I'm actually starting to look into making it my daily driver on my productivity laptop that I'm working with every day. So I've learned that in my time in the industry, I've learned that forcing features on users is the fastest way to make them look for an alternative, just like I'm looking into Linux now. So even when internal Microsoft leaders have expressed frustration and the integration is breaking core functionality, like the start menu and search, when a tool feels like a coerced adoption rather than a helpful assistant, the brand value starts to evaporate almost overnight. Now, again, let me make this very clear. We've run Linux on our servers for over 10 years. I don't build anything on Windows on the servers, haven't for well over a decade. However, for my daily driver, I have used Windows because it's just been the fastest to get it done. I don't use Mac because they're horrifically expensive for an underpowered hardware. So for me, Windows has always been the best option. Linux drivers always posed enough of a problem that I couldn't run a handful of different apps. So for me, Windows has been the daily driver. But this force of forcing Copilot into every corner of the OS is the thing that will probably force me to Linux sooner rather than later to run even as my daily driver. Now, leaked data suggests that the actual adoption rate for the $30 a month Copilot is shockingly low. Some estimate around 2%. Despite the biggest marketing push in the history of the company, most enterprise users aren't seeing enough value to justify the cost. Companies like Barclays and Volkswagen have signed huge deals, but individual developers' feedback is often, I'd rather just have a ChatGPT sub, or what they all want is Claude Code. It turns out that the integration isn't a feature, and the underlying intelligence is lagging. Sorry, it turns out that that integration isn't a feature if the underlying intelligence is lagging behind the competition. If you can't prove that your tool saves more than its monthly cost in time, the CFO is eventually going to come knocking with a pair of scissors. Microsoft is finding out the hard way that you can't just market your way into being the best AI company in the world. Now, if your company needs help, reach out to us, because here at Startup Hack, our specialty is connecting systems. So we can help you get your systems working and your processes ironed out. So check out startuphack.com because we'd love to help. Now, top tier developers are incredibly picky about their tools, and forcing them to use a subpar AI is a great way to lose talent. Microsoft engineers are vocal on internal channels about how Claude Code is actually making them more productive. I've always said that a developer's environment is sacred, and when leadership messes with that, things get ugly. The reality is that dogfooding only works if the product is actually good enough to use for real work. So when your best engineers are skirting company policy to use a competitor's CLI, you have a massive cultural problem on your hands. Now, Microsoft sells Copilot on the promise of enterprise security, yet they've had major vulnerabilities like SSRF flaw in Copilot Studio. There's massive risk in over-permissioning where the AI can access sensitive data that employees shouldn't be seeing. I've seen reports where Copilot accidentally shared C-level salaries with regular staff because the permissions weren't locked down properly. So I've seen that security shortfalls always catch up with you, and AI makes these mistakes happen at lightning speed. So if the AI has the keys to the kingdom, one small prompt injection could lead to a catastrophic data breach. Microsoft is struggling to balance the correctness of the AI with the strict silos required for enterprise security. Now, there's a growing sentiment among the dev community that Copilot's specific harness actually nerfs the power of the OpenAI models. Users feel like they're getting a lobotomized version of GPT-4 that is more prone to refusing tasks or giving generic, useless advice. Claude, on the other hand, is being praised for having a meticulous style that feels more like a human senior developer. So in my years in tech, it's always taught me that the vibe code or the tone of the tool matter just as much as the raw benchmarks. Microsoft's heavy-handed safety filters and guardrails are making the tool feel sterile and less capable than the competition. When your AI spends more time telling you what it can't do than actually doing it, it's time to switch tools. Now, Satya Nadella is a smart leader, and he's clearly realizing that betting everything on OpenAI was a massive risk, and it's coming back to bite him. By bringing Claude into Microsoft's Foundry and AI Azure ecosystem, they're trying to stay relevant even if Copilot fails. The $500 million commitment to Anthropic shows that Microsoft is preparing for a future where they're just a platform, not a leader. Now, in my years in tech, I've seen these pivots happen when a company realizes their internal project is a sinking ship. And I think that's what Satya Nadella is doing here, because I think he's a pretty sharp guy. They're effectively telling their customers, we know Copilot isn't the best, so here's the tool that actually is. It's a strategic retreat disguised as a partnership expansion and signals that OpenAI monopoly is officially over and that we're beginning to see the failure of OpenAI. Now, building a great LLM is hard, but building a great integration into a legacy OS like Windows is arguably even harder. Microsoft is struggling to find the talent that understands both the old school Win32 world and the new frontier of AI agents. So I've seen companies trying to turn regular devs into AI engineers overnight, and almost always ends up in a messy, terrible mess. The quality gap between the engineers at Anthropic and the implementation teams at Microsoft is becoming very apparent. Until Microsoft can bridge that engineering gap, their AI features will continue to feel like clunky add-ons rather than core integrations. You can't slap a chat window on a 30-year-old legacy code and call it a day. The honeymoon phase of AI is ending, and board of directors are starting to ask where the actual money is. If company spends millions on Copilot seats and sees zero increase in shipping velocity, heads are going to start to roll. Microsoft is feeling this pressure, which is likely why they're desperate to find any tool that works, even a competitor's. So in my years in tech, I've learned that technology only survives if it solves a real problem at a reasonable price point. And that's why here at Startup Hack, we're starting to build real AI tools like you can see over here. And next week, we're going to be announcing the first of these that's going to be rolling out into the market. So we've worked to niche down and to build real AI tools that can really help solve a real problem for real companies. The AI bubble isn't necessarily bursting, but it's certainly deflating for the companies that overpromised and underdelivered. The future belongs to the tools and the developers that actually love to use, following real software development practices and building real tools that people really love to use. Not one thing for everything, a specific set of tools for a specific thing. Now, I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I'd love to have a great conversation. Here at Startup Hack, we love to help build custom software solutions for companies. So check out startuphack.com because we'd love to help. And here's some great information about our services.
Hi, I'm Spencer, a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and 25 years in software development, I've transformed technology teams and products for businesses just like yours. As your fractional CTO, you get the strategic guidance of a seasoned technology executive without the full-time commitment. Perfect for companies ready to leverage cutting-edge technology without expanding headcount. My team at Startup Hack has already built advanced AI agents for small and medium businesses, automating complex workflows and delivering advanced ROI to human workflows. We specialize in creating custom software that connects your systems into a single coherent technology ecosystem. Our development approach focuses on tangible business outcomes. For one client, we developed AI-powered workflows that cut days off of human processes. For another company, by connecting multiple systems, we reduced processing time to increase their ROI by over 75%. We don't just write code, we architect solutions that scale. Whether you need cloud system architecture, data integration between legacy systems, or custom AI agents that automate your unique business processes, my team delivers results that exceed your expectations. Having led technology for a lot of companies and launched 7 successful brands of my own, I bring battle-tested expertise to your business challenges. Our specialty is turning technological complexity into business advantage. So if you're ready to harness the power of AI and custom software to drive your business forward, let's connect. Together, we'll build technology that doesn't just solve today's problems, it positions you for tomorrow's opportunities. Technology leadership, decades of experience, AI powered. Reach out today and we can help you. Check out startuphack.com/Spencer.